My in-laws mocked my vows in front of everyone, until my wife added her own words that left them ashamed. The air was thick with anticipation, the kind that makes your heart race and your palms sweat. It was my wedding day, the moment I'd dreamed of for years, but what unfolded would leave everyone speechless. My name is James, and this is the story of how my in-laws mocked my vows in front of everyone, until my wife, Emily, added her own words that left them utterly ashamed. Hey, before we dive in, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Your city, your country. It means the world to hear from you, and I'm curious to see how far this story travels. Now let's get to it. The sun was setting over the rolling hills of Asheville, North Carolina, casting a golden glow over the outdoor venue. Rows of white chairs were filled with family and friends, their faces beaming with smiles. Or so I thought. The string quartet played softly, and the scent of roses filled the air. Emily stood across from me, radiant in her white dress, her eyes locked on mine. I could feel the weight of every gaze on us, the hum of excitement, the clink of champagne glasses. It was perfect. Or it should have been. But beneath the surface, something simmered, a tension I couldn't quite place. I brushed it off, chalking it up to nerves. After all, weddings bring out the best and worst in people, don't they? You plan for months, maybe years, for one day to go flawlessly. But life has a way of throwing curveballs. And this curveball? It was a fastball aimed straight at my heart. Let me take you back to the start of that day. The venue was a charming vineyard with ivy-covered arches and a wooden altar framed by wildflowers. I stood at the front, adjusting my tie, trying to steady my breathing. Emily and I had been together for 3 years, engaged for 1. She was my rock, kind, witty, the kind of person who lights up a room without trying. We'd planned every detail of this day together, from the handwritten invitations to the playlist for the reception. It was our day, a celebration of our love, our future. The guests started arriving. My parents, Tom and Linda, were there early, helping set up chairs and greeting everyone with warm hugs. My best man, Mike, kept the mood light, cracking jokes about my sweaty palms. Emily's family was there too. Her parents, Susan and Richard, and her older sister, Claire. They were polite, sure, but there was always this distance. Susan had a habit of raising her eyebrow whenever I spoke, like she was sizing me up and finding me lacking. Richard was quieter, but his silence felt heavy, judgmental. Claire? She'd always been cold, tossing out backhanded compliments that stung more than they should have. As the ceremony began, I scanned the crowd. There were about 100 people, friends from college, cousins, co-workers. Everyone seemed happy, clapping as Emily walked down the aisle, her arm looped through her father's. I'll never forget the way she looked at me, her smile soft but fierce, like she was promising me forever. I felt like the luckiest man alive, but there were cracks in the picture-perfect scene. I noticed Susan whispering to Claire during the officiant's opening words, their heads bent together, their expressions unreadable. Mike caught my eye and gave me a reassuring nod, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was like a storm cloud hovering just out of sight, waiting to break. You see, Emily's family never fully approved of me. I'm a high school history teacher, passionate about my work but not exactly rolling in money. Emily's family, on the other hand, came from wealth, old money, the kind that buys summer homes and Ivy League degrees. They'd made subtle digs over the years, comments about my simple lifestyle, questions about how I'd provide for Emily. I thought we'd moved past it. I thought today would be different. What was at stake that day wasn't just our vows or the party to follow. It was our love, our future, the fragile bridge we'd built between our families. I wanted to prove I was enough, not just to Emily, but to everyone watching. My pride, my reputation, everything was on the line. And as I stood there, holding Emily's hands, I had no idea how quickly things would unravel. The officiant asked us to share our vows, and my heart pounded. I'd spent weeks writing mine, pouring my soul into every word. I wanted them to be perfect, to show Emily, and everyone else, how much she meant to me. But as I opened my mouth to speak, I caught Susan's eye. She was smirking just slightly, like she knew something I didn't. Claire leaned over to whisper something to her, and they both stifled a laugh. My stomach twisted. What was so funny? What were they planning? I pushed the thought aside and started my vows. "Emily," I said, my voice steady despite the nerves, "you're my home, my adventure, my everything. I promise to stand by you, to make you laugh even when life gets heavy, to be your partner in every way." The crowd sighed, a few people dabbing their eyes. Emily's smile grew, her fingers squeezing mine. For a moment I thought I'd nailed it, but then I heard it. A low, mocking chuckle from Susan's direction. It was faint, but it cut through the quiet like a knife. A few heads turned, and my cheeks burned. Emily's smile faltered, just for a second. I kept going, but the doubt crept in. Were my words not good enough? Was I not good enough? That chuckle was the first crack in the dam, and what came next would flood everything. The ceremony pressed on, but that chuckle from Susan lingered in my mind like a splinter. I finished my vows, my voice steady, but my heart racing. Emily's eyes were locked on mine, full of love, but I could tell she'd heard it too. Her grip on my hands tightened, a silent reassurance. The officiant smiled, oblivious to the tension, and invited Emily to share her vows. She took a deep breath, her voice soft but clear, filling the vineyard with words that felt like poetry. "James, you're my safe harbor, my courage, my best friend. I promise to choose you every day, no matter what storms come our way." The crowd murmured approvingly, and my parents beamed from the front row. For a moment I let myself believe we'd weathered the worst. But then it happened again. Another stifled laugh, this time from Claire. It was louder, sharp enough to draw a few curious glances. Susan leaned toward her, whispering something behind a manicured hand, her eyes glinting with amusement. My best man, Mike, shifted uncomfortably beside me, his jaw tight. I caught my mom's eye. She looked confused, her brow furrowed as she glanced toward Emily's family. The air felt heavier now, like the calm before a lightning strike. As the officiant moved on to the ring exchange, I tried to focus on Emily, on the weight of the gold band in my pocket, on the life we were building. But the whispers kept coming. Susan's voice, low but deliberate, carried just enough for me to catch fragments. "So earnest," she muttered to Claire, who smirked and nodded. Earnest. Was that code for pathetic? My chest tightened, a mix of anger and embarrassment. I wanted to call them out, to demand what was so damn funny, but I couldn't. Not in front of everyone, not on our day. The officiant handed me the microphone to say a few words before the rings. I'd planned to keep it short, heartfelt. "Emily," I said, my voice catching slightly, "this ring is my promise to you, to us, to a life built on trust and love." I slipped the band onto her finger and her eyes shimmered with tears. The crowd clapped softly, except for Susan and Claire. They sat stone-faced, Susan's lips pursed like she'd tasted something sour. Claire whispered something again, and this time, Richard, Emily's dad, shifted in his seat, his face unreadable. Was he in on it too? Emily took the microphone next, her hands steady despite the faint tremor in her voice. "James, this ring is my vow to stand by you, to fight for us, no matter what." Her words were like a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge of doubt. But as she slid the ring onto my finger, I saw Claire roll her eyes. It was subtle, but it hit like a punch. A few guests nearby noticed, their smiles fading into awkward glances. The tension was no longer invisible. It was spreading, like a ripple across still water. The officiant, sensing the shift, hurried to the next part, the unity candle. Emily and I stepped toward the small table, each lighting a candle before joining them to ignite a larger one. It was meant to symbolize our union, our families coming together. But as we lit the flame, I heard another whisper, this time from Susan, loud enough to carry. "Hope that flame lasts longer than his promises." A few gasps broke the silence. My mom's hand flew to her mouth and Mike's eyes narrowed, his fists clenching at his sides. Emily froze, her hand trembling as she set down her candle. I wanted to scream. What gave them the right to mock us, to taint this moment? My vows, my love for Emily, they weren't a joke. But the humiliation burned, hot and sharp. I glanced at Emily, expecting her to be as crushed as I was, but her face was unreadable, her lips pressed into a thin line. She squeezed my hand, hard, like she was anchoring herself. I didn't know it then, but she was already planning her response. The officiant, bless her, tried to keep things moving. "Let's take a moment to hear from the families," she said, her voice overly cheerful. My parents stood first, my dad's voice warm as he spoke about love and commitment, his arm around my mom. The crowd clapped, and I felt a flicker of pride. But when Susan stood, the air changed. She adjusted her pearl necklace, her smile tight and performative. "We're so happy for Emily," she said, her tone dripping with something I couldn't quite name. "She's always been our pride and joy. We just hope this choice holds up." The word choice landed like a slap. A few guests shifted uncomfortably, and I saw my cousin Lisa exchange a shocked look with her husband. Claire stood next, her voice syrupy sweet. "James, you're dedicated, I'll give you that. Let's hope you keep up." The crowd went silent, the kind of silence that presses against your eardrums. My face burned, and I could feel every eye on me. Dedicated? It was a backhanded jab, implying I was some lovesick puppy, not a man worthy of Emily. I wanted to fire back to defend myself, but Emily's hand on mine stopped me. Her eyes said, "Wait." The tension was suffocating now, a coiled spring ready to snap. Every whisper, every smirk, every pointed word was building toward something I couldn't predict. Susan and Claire thought they had the upper hand, thought they could humiliate me in front of everyone. But they didn't know Emily, not like I did, and they had no idea what was coming. The vineyard fell silent, the kind of quiet that makes your pulse race. Susan and Claire's mocking whispers had sliced through the ceremony, leaving a raw edge in the air. My vows, my love for Emily had been belittled, and the sting of it burned. I gripped Emily's hand, fighting the urge to grab the microphone and confront them. But Emily, she wasn't shaken. Her eyes burned with something fierce, something I hadn't seen before. The officiant, her smile tight, handed Emily the microphone for her final words before we were pronounced husband and wife. I expected something soft, something to smooth over the tension. Instead, Emily stepped forward, her posture steady, her voice clear and sharp. "I have something to say," she began, her gaze sweeping the crowd. Susan smirked. Claire crossed her arms, both clearly expecting some sentimental plea. They were wrong. "James," Emily said, turning to me, her voice softening. "Your vows were beautiful, a piece of your heart. I felt every word." She faced the guests again, her eyes locking onto her mother and sister. "But not everyone here respects that. Some of you, my family, think James isn't enough. You've whispered it for years, and today you made it loud." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Susan's smirk vanished, her face paling. Claire's arms dropped, her mouth slack. Emily didn't waver. "You mocked his love, his worth. But let me tell you about James. He's the man who shows up, who loves me fiercely, who builds a life with me, not for money or status, but for us." The silence was heavy, every guest hanging on her words. My mom's eyes shone with tears, and Mike gave a subtle nod like he knew this was coming. Emily's voice rose, steady but fierce. "Mom, Claire, your comments don't just hurt James, they hurt me. I'm done letting you think it's okay." Susan clutched her purse, her face flushed with shock. Claire looked like she wanted to vanish. Emily turned to me, her eyes soft but determined. "James, I choose you, today and always. If anyone can't respect that, they can leave." The crowd erupted. My mom clapped first, then Mike, then my dad. Soon half the guests were on their feet, cheering. Susan and Claire stayed seated, their faces burning with shame. The air crackled with the weight of Emily's words, a truth that had been buried too long. The officiant, clearly rattled, rushed to pronounce us husband and wife. I kissed Emily, my heart pounding, not just from the moment, but from her courage. The crowd cheered, petals flying as we walked down the aisle. My parents hugged us tightly, my mom whispering, "I'm so proud of you both." Mike grinned, clapping my shoulder. "Your wife's a force, man." But Emily's family hung back. Susan stood rigid, her lips tight. Claire avoided my gaze, fiddling with her phone. Richard approached slowly, his face heavy. "Emily," he said quietly. "I didn't realize." She nodded, her expression firm. "You do now, Dad." The reception carried on, the band playing, the dance floor alive. But Emily's speech lingered. Guests whispered about it, some in awe, others shocked. My cousin Lisa leaned toward her husband, muttering, "They had it coming." It felt good, but it also hurt. Emily shouldn't have had to defend me like that. Later, by the vineyard's edge, Emily and I stole a quiet moment. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice low. "I should have stopped them sooner." I pulled her close. "You were incredible. You fought for us." She smiled, her eyes tired but sure. "They'll learn, or they won't. But we're enough." The night ended with laughter and dancing, but Susan and Claire left early, mumbling about a headache. Richard stayed, even danced with Emily, his face etched with regret. In the weeks that followed, Emily set firm boundaries. Susan sent a weak apology text, which Emily ignored. Claire stayed silent. The wedding had exposed their true colors, and while it stung, it also freed us. Our marriage began stronger than ever, rooted in truth and love, not whispers or judgment. The vineyard glowed under the string lights as the reception wound down, the music softening to a gentle hum. Emily and I stood together, watching our friends and family dance, laugh, and clink glasses under the starry North Carolina sky. The weight of the day, Susan and Claire's mockery, Emily's bold stand, still lingered, but so did the warmth of our love, stronger now, tested by fire. My hand rested on Emily's waist, her head leaning against my shoulder. We'd made it through, not just intact but unbreakable. But as the night faded, I couldn't help but reflect on what it all meant. Not just for us, but for everyone who'd witnessed it. Weddings are supposed to be about joy, about two people promising forever. But they're also a stage where every tension, every unspoken grudge can bubble up and burst. I'd seen it in the way Susan's smirk had crumbled, in Claire's averted eyes, in the way Richard's silence spoke louder than words. Families are messy, aren't they? You go in hoping for unity, for love to bridge the gaps, but sometimes those gaps are canyons. Emily's speech wasn't just a defense of me, it was a line in the sand, a declaration that our love wouldn't bend to their judgment. And that, I realized, was the real victory of the day. Looking back, I wondered what made Susan and Claire think they could mock me so openly. Was it my job, my modest paycheck, my lack of their polished pedigree? Or was it something deeper, some fear that Emily's choice of me challenged their carefully curated world? I'd never know for sure, and maybe it didn't matter. What mattered was Emily's courage, the way she stood up not just for me, but for us, for the life we were building. She'd shown everyone that love isn't about status or approval. It's about choosing someone, flaws and all, and meaning it. The guests, too, were part of the story. My parents, teary-eyed and proud, had rallied around us, their hugs a reminder of the family I'd always had. Mike, my best man, had been ready to throw punches if it came to it, his loyalty unspoken but fierce. Even the guests who barely knew us, friends of friends, distant cousins, had been drawn into the drama, their cheers for Emily a kind of collective exhale. They'd seen something real, something raw, and it left an impression. I overheard one woman say to her husband, "That's how you know it's real love." It stuck with me, that idea, that sometimes the messiest moments reveal the truest ones. As for Emily's family, the fallout wasn't tidy. Richard reached out a week later, his voice heavy with regret, promising to do better. Emily listened, cautious but open. Susan's text apology was half-hearted, more about saving face than owning up. Claire? She went radio silent, her pride too bruised to reach out. Emily didn't chase them. "They'll come around when they're ready," she told me one night, her voice steady. "Or they won't. But I'm not holding my breath." Her strength floored me. She wasn't just my wife. She was my partner, my equal, my fiercest ally. That night, as we danced our last dance to a slow acoustic song, I realized something else. Weddings aren't just about the day. They're about what comes after. The vows, the rings, the speeches, they're promises. But the real work is living them. Susan and Claire's mockery could have broken us, could have cast a shadow over our start. Instead, it sharpened our resolve. We walked away from that day not just married but united, ready to face whatever came next, together. So here's my question to you. Watching this story unfold, what would you have done? If someone tried to tear down the person you love, would you stay quiet, or would you stand up like Emily did? Love is a choice, but it's also a fight. Sometimes against the world, sometimes against your own family. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What hit you hardest about this story? Maybe you've been through something similar, or maybe it just made you think. Share it with me, and let's keep this conversation going. And if this story moved you, if it made you laugh, cry, or cheer, hit that subscribe button. Stories like these, real, raw, human, are what we're all about. Click the bell so you don't miss the next one. Because trust me, there's more where this came from. Every family has its secrets, its dramas, its moments that change everything. And I can't wait to share another one with you. As the final notes of the song played, Emily whispered, "We did it." I kissed her forehead, the vineyard quiet around us. "Yeah," I said, "we did." And in that moment, with the stars above and the future ahead, I knew we were just getting started.